The atmosphere suddenly turned tense when Taehyung appeared on the live broadcast that night. With a rarely seen serious expression, he said there was something he had been wanting to reveal, something that even AIMY held their breath waiting for the next part. Without further ado, Taehyung explained that he had been under immense pressure recently regarding a personal project, and the decisions he made had a significant impact on his relationships with his members. That statement immediately set the comment section ablaze, but what was most surprising was when Taehyung mentioned Jungkook. He needs time to process everything, Taehyung said quietly. A few seconds of silence followed, and then, Chaos.Army began to speculate, wondering what had really happened. Why did Jungkook seem so distant? What decision did Taehyung make that changed the situation? What further fueled the fire was Jungkook's reaction the next day. He appeared in a short post with an ambiguous sentence, sending the fandom into a frenzy. Now, the entire AIMY was demanding answers. What was the real mystery behind the sudden distance between these two close friends? And when will they finally explain everything? The following day, the fandom remained unsettled. Various speculations filled timelines, ranging from misunderstandings, secret conflicts, to major decisions yet to be revealed. But what most unsettled AIMY was Jungkook's increasingly suspicious demeanor. In one behind-the-scenes footage released a few hours later, Jungkook appeared quieter than usual. Although he still wore a faint smile, his eyes looked heavy, as if he was trying to hide something. When a staff member tried to talk to him, Jungkook only gave a short response and returned to focusing on a corner of the room. The footage immediately went viral, comments exploded, theories ran wild. Meanwhile, Taehyung hadn't appeared at all for 24 hours, and for someone who was usually active, that only added to the mystery. Until finally, in the middle of the night, notifications across the fandom rang again. Taehyung had posted a blurry, black and white photo. No face. No explanation. Just one sentence ***. Sometimes distance needs to be created to make everything whole again. ***. The post was like gasoline poured on a fire. Armies grew increasingly panicked, increasingly curious, increasingly sensing that something much bigger was happening behind the scenes. Some fans began to suspect that Taehyung and Jungkook were taking time to resolve something they couldn't share publicly. Some were convinced it was just a minor misunderstanding, but many others believed it was the culmination of a long-simmering tension. And just when everyone thought things couldn't get any more confusing, Jungkook suddenly deleted his last post. In less than 5 minutes. The topic shot to number 1 on the global trending list. What were they trying to convey? What really happened between the two best friends known to be the closest? One thing was for sure, armies wouldn't rest until the truth was revealed. That night, the fandom was in complete chaos. Armies around the world stayed up late, trying to decipher the signs. Even major fanbase accounts began creating analysis threads, trying to piece together the missing pieces of the puzzle. But no one expected what happened next. Around 2 in the morning, an anonymous staff member, whose face was barely visible in a short video, accidentally entered the frame during a behind-the-scenes live stream. And behind him, 2 figures anyone would instantly recognize, Taehyung and Jungkook, not talking, not laughing, but standing back to back. The two were in the same room, but the atmosphere felt cold, as if there was an invisible wall between them. Jungkook sat with his head down, while Taehyung stood staring out the tinted window with his hands in his pockets. Once again, the clip went viral in seconds. Armies who saw the footage were immediately in an uproar. Some cried, some panicked, some realized that this was a sign of an internal battle, and many hoped they just needed time to talk. And as if the universe knew the fandom was already on edge, a leaked message from an internal staff member, which was quickly deleted, stated, "They will meet and talk tonight. Without cameras." As soon as the rumor surfaced, armies held their breath. Everyone waited, whether there would be good news or an even bigger storm. A few hours later, before sunrise, the fandom notification went off again. This time it wasn't from staff, not from the fanbase. It was from Jungkook himself. A short message appeared on his personal platform. "I'm trying to understand something, and someone. ***, no name. No context, But that one sentence was enough to stun the entire fandom. Was this about Taehyung? Was this a sign of the beginning of healing? Or is it an admission that their problems are far more complicated than they imagined? There's no certainty yet. And most nerve-wrackingly, Taehyung hasn't responded yet. It's as if the storm is just about to reach its center. The fandom was still awake as morning slowly dawned. The sun hadn't even fully risen, but rumors were already filling the entire timeline. Every second felt long, as if the world was waiting for an inevitable explosion. Taehyung remained silent. No posts. No signs of life. That was precisely what made AIMY even more anxious. Until suddenly, a blurry photo circulated from behind the practice building. It wasn't clear who took the photo, but it appeared to be two shadows entering the same room, shadows too familiar to be mistaken. Army immediately suspected Taehyung and Jungkook have finally met. Rumors in the community reported that the room was soundproof, used for vocal practice or important discussions to prevent anyone from overhearing. No cameras. No staff. No other members, just the two of them. Outside the room, several staff members could be seen pacing back and forth with tense expressions, as if they knew this was no ordinary meeting. Jungkook sat in the chair, his hands clasped tightly together, trying to catch his breath. His gaze was fixed on the floor, but his thoughts were racing in directions he couldn't control. The door opened slowly. Taehyung entered, closing the door behind him silently. For a few seconds, not a word escaped their lips. Only silence, a thick, meaningful, and tense silence. Jungkook finally looked up, their eyes met, and the whole world seemed to stop. We need to talk, Taehyung said in a low, but firm voice. Jungkook swallowed, then replied, I know, but I don't want to talk if I still don't understand everything. Taehyung approached, his steps slow but sure. That's exactly why, we need to explain ourselves to each other. There was another pause. A pause that felt like the distance that had been between them for weeks. Finally, Jungkook took a deep breath and spoke. Why did you make that decision without telling me first? The question echoed, like opening the door to a conflict that had been hidden from public view. Taehyung closed his eyes for a moment before saying, because I was afraid you would try to stop me. And outside that room, unbeknownst to them, armies around the world continued to wait, guessing, worrying, begging for answers. No one realized that the conversation had just begun. The room felt smaller than usual. Despite its spaciousness, the oppressive emotional atmosphere made it feel as if it was shrinking. After Taehyung's words, because I was afraid you'd try to stop me, Jungkook remained silent. Not because he didn't want to speak, but because the words were too profound to process immediately. Jungkook shifted his chair slightly, leaning forward. Young, why did you think I'd stop you? Taehyung stared at the floor, as if searching for an answer he was hesitant to say. Because that decision isn't just about me. His voice was low, almost trembling. It concerns us. All of us. Jungkook frowned. And that's why you're cutting me out of the conversation. Taehyung flinched slightly, feeling stabbed. I didn't, that's not what I meant. If that wasn't it, Jungkook lifted his head, his voice soft but clearly filled with hurt. Why did you walk away in the first place? Why did you only leave a text message that I couldn't even answer? Taehyung took a deep breath, his eyes looked tired, like someone who had been carrying a burden for months. I was afraid you'd be disappointed. I was afraid you'd be angry. I was afraid that if I spoke directly, I wouldn't be able to make that decision. Jungkook stood slowly, approaching Taehyung, not angry, but filled with uncertainty. Taehyung, whatever you're facing, why do you think I'd rather be apart than sit down and face it together? Taehyung looked directly at Jungkook. For the first time since they'd entered the room, a real emotion was visible, guilt. I don't want to burden you, he whispered. Jungkook chuckled softly, not because it was funny, but because of the absurdity of the words. Young, we've been through so much together. We are family. His voice was soft, but it only made the atmosphere even more emotional. If you make such a big decision without me, it'll hurt even more. Taehyung closed his eyes, Jungkook finally revealed the core of his pain. A wound he'd never acknowledged. Taehyung sat down in a chair, lowered his head, and then said hoarsely, "I'm going away for a while." Jungkook froze, going, "Where?" His voice trembled. Taehyung bit his lip, trying to remain calm. "Abroad. For a personal project. For a few months. And I don't know what will change after that." Silence. A piercing silence. Jungkook shook his head slowly, as if in disbelief. "And you think I'll stop you?" His voice was low, but full of hurt. "I just want you to tell the truth. Not disappear." Taehyung looked at him, their eyes meeting, and for the first time since this conflict began, they both looked vulnerable. Outside the room, the world still waited. Army still speculated. The tension still hung in the air.